Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. The halls of General Hospital had always been filled with whispers. Whispers about contracts, whispers about exits, whispers about love stories cut short before their time. But this time the whisper wasn't just another rumor circulating around Port Charles, it was real, and it hit harder than anyone expected. When news broke that Steve Burton was exiting the show, the shock didn't just ripple through the fanbase, it detonated backstage. And no one felt the blast quite like Thiebaud. Kelly had built something powerful on screen. Her portrayal of Britt Westbourne had evolved from manipulative schemer to vulnerable, layered heroine. And at the center of that transformation stood Jason Morgan, the stoic, guarded enforcer whose chemistry with Britt had surprised everyone. Their love story hadn't been loud. It hadn't been flashy. It had been slow, earned, unexpected. And now it felt like it was being ripped away. Kelly would later sit down for an intimate conversation on State of Mind, hosted by Maurice Benard, and the rawness in her voice would say everything fans needed to know. She hadn't been prepared. She hadn't seen it coming. "I was very shocked," she admitted. Not the polite PR-ready kind of shocked, the real kind, the kind that tightens your chest and makes your stomach drop. Behind the scenes, Kelly wasn't just Britt losing Jason. She was Kelly losing Steve. And that distinction mattered. Because for years they had built trust, scene by scene, moment by moment, through dangerous stunts, emotionally heavy dialogue, and those quiet hospital room conversations that made fans fall in love with JaBritt. So when Steve told her he was leaving, it didn't feel like just another contract ending. It felt personal. She confronted him. Not dramatically, not angrily, but honestly. "So I confronted Steve about it," she revealed. "He gave me his reasons." There was understanding in her tone when she recounted it, but there was also something else. "Hurt. I know what that feels like, but the other side of that is I feel let down. You know, I thought we had time together." Time. That was the word that lingered. Soap actors live in a strange world. They don't just build characters, they build futures. Writers map out arcs months in advance. Love stories stretch across years. Chemistry grows roots. Kelly believed there was more time for Britt and Jason. More milestones. More heartbreak. More healings. Instead, she was staring at an ending she hadn't planned for. She admitted it had been really hard. She admitted she was sad. And fans could feel it. But she didn't attack him. She didn't lash out. Because even through the disappointment, she understood something deeper. "He's got to go live his life," she said, "and I wish him nothing but the best." That line changed everything. Because it revealed the duality of the situation. On one side, a professional partnership and a storyline that was finally gaining momentum. On the other, a real human being with real priorities beyond studio lights. Steve had his reasons, personal ones, important ones, bigger than ratings, contracts, or fan expectations. Kelly understood that. But understanding doesn't erase emotion. It doesn't erase the sting of losing something you were just beginning to fully explore. And for viewers invested in Britt and Jason's relationship, Kelly's words felt like confirmation of their worst fears. Was this really the end? Steve had publicly stated he planned to return in the summer. But Kelly's tone carried a weight that made fans uneasy. There was a finality in her phrasing. As if she wasn't counting on that summer promise. As if she had already emotionally prepared herself for goodbye. And that's where the online explosion began. Social media erupted within hours of the clip's release. Some fans rallied behind her instantly. They understood the heartbreak. They had watched Britt and Jason slowly dismantle their emotional walls. They had rooted for them through danger and doubt. Of course, Kelly would feel blindsided. Of course, she would feel disappointed. Others weren't as sympathetic. Some critics accused her of making it about herself. They dissected her tone, they questioned her phrasing, they claimed she sounded resentful. But anyone who truly listened heard something else. Vulnerability. This wasn't a diva meltdown. This was an actress grieving the sudden derailment of a story she cared deeply about. Because Britt wasn't just a character. Britt was growth, redemption, and Jason had been a critical part of that evolution. Without him, the trajectory changed dramatically. Behind the scenes, scripts were rewritten, arcs were shifted, conversations were held in quiet offices about what this meant for the future. Would Britt spiral? Would she harden again? Would she lose the softness Jason had brought out in her? No one knew for certain. But what was clear was this: the love story was about to be derailed in a major way. And fans could feel the train leaving the tracks. Meanwhile, Steve maintained that he would be back. He insisted this wasn't permanent. But soap history is filled with temporary exits that became something else entirely. Kelly's comments added fuel to that uncertainty. She made it sound monumental. Like the end of an era. Like a door closing. And even though she insisted she loved Steve and would miss him terribly, she also acknowledged a painful truth. You've got to go when you feel the need to go. It was a mature statement. But maturity doesn't dull heartbreak. It simply frames it. As the February 22 episode of State of Mind approached, anticipation grew. Fans wanted more context, more emotion, more insight into what had truly happened behind those studio walls. Was there tension? Was there conflict? Or was it simply life intervening in a world that runs on scripted drama? The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A show built on betrayals and sudden exits had just experienced one of its most shocking departures off-screen. And in many ways, the backstage emotion mirrored the on-screen chaos Port Charles thrives on. Because in Port Charles, love stories rarely get smooth endings. They get explosions, interruptions, tragedy, and sometimes they simply stop. Kelly's confession wasn't about ego. It was about expectation. Expectation of time. Expectation of continuation. Expectation that something special would have space to breathe. Instead, she was left navigating an abrupt pause. Or perhaps an ending. As scripts shifted and fans debated, one thing remained certain. Jason and Britt's love story would never look the same again. And neither would the emotional landscape of General Hospital. In daytime television, nothing lasts forever. Characters die. Actors leave. Contracts expire. But certain pairings carve out a space so strong that audiences begin to believe they're untouchable. Jason and Britt had become one of those pairings. Not because they were flashy, but because they felt earned. Jason Morgan, stoic, loyal, emotionally guarded, had always struggled to let people in. Britt Westbourne, once selfish and manipulative, had fought her way toward redemption. Together, they were unexpected balance. So when Steve's exit blindsided Kelly, it also blindsided the future of that balance. In her full conversation with Maurice Benard, Kelly went deeper into the emotional complexity of it all. She explained that she didn't resent Steve for choosing himself. In fact, she respected it deeply. Working on a soap opera is grueling: long hours, intense emotional scenes, constant public scrutiny. When someone decides they need personal time, it's rarely a casual choice. Kelly understood that on a human level. But on a creative level, it hurt. Because actors don't just memorize lines, they invest. They imagine where their characters might go. They talk with writers. They discuss possibilities. They emotionally map out arcs that might take years to unfold. Kelly believed Britt and Jason were at the beginning of something expansive. And now she had to emotionally recalibrate. The fan reaction added another layer of intensity. Hashtags trended. Debates ignited. Some viewers accused the show of mishandling the couple. Others blamed Steve. Some defended him fiercely. Others questioned whether he would truly return. Through it all, Kelly remained steady. She didn't stir controversy. She didn't escalate drama. She simply told the truth about how she felt. And perhaps that honesty unsettled people more than anything else. Because in a world where public statements are often polished and sanitized, her vulnerability felt raw. There was a moment in the interview where she paused before speaking, a subtle hesitation that revealed the emotional weight behind her words. She wasn't acting. She wasn't performing. She was processing. "I'll miss him terribly," she said. "Not Jason. Tim. Steve." That distinction once again underscored the real heart of the situation. Behind every soap pairing is a professional partnership built on trust. When one half steps away, it's not just storyline disruption. It's personal adjustment. And that adjustment takes time. As production moved forward, writers faced difficult decisions. Do they leave the door open for a triumphant reunion? Do they push Britt into new territory? Do they risk alienating fans by pivoting too quickly? Soap storytelling is a delicate dance. Move too slowly and audiences grow restless. Move too quickly and they feel betrayed. Kelly's interview inadvertently amplified that tension. Because even though Steve claimed he'd return in the summer, Kelly's tone made fans question whether that reunion would carry the same emotional momentum. Would the chemistry still crackle? Would the story pick up seamlessly? Or would the magic have shifted? Only time would tell. But one thing was undeniable: the love story had been interrupted. And interruptions change trajectories. In Port Charles, derailed love often leads to darkness. Pain creates vulnerability. Vulnerability creates mistakes. Mistakes create drama. General Hospital spoilers hinted that Jason and Britt's relationship was about to be derailed in a massive way. Whether that meant heartbreak, distance, or something even more tragic remained to be seen. But the sense of upheaval was real. And for Kelly, the emotional journey mirrored Britt's own. Britt had finally allowed herself to hope. Kelly had finally allowed herself to believe in the longevity of that arc. Both were forced to confront uncertainty. In the end, perhaps that's the true essence of soap opera storytelling, both on screen and off. Unpredictability. High emotions. Sudden change. As Kelly wrapped her interview, there was no bitterness. Only acceptance. A quiet understanding that sometimes, even when something feels unfinished, you have to let it go. "You've got to go when you feel the need to go," she repeated. It wasn't just about Steve anymore. It was about life. About timing. About recognizing when a chapter closes, whether temporarily or permanently. For now, the future of Jason Morgan remains a question mark. For now, Britt's path stands altered. But the emotion Kelly expressed ensured one thing. This wasn't just another exit. It was a moment that shifted the emotional foundation of General Hospital. And fans will be watching every step of what comes next. Because in Port Charles, nothing stays buried. Not heartbreak. Not uncertainty. And certainly not love stories left unfinished.